The Wretched was directed by the Pierce brothers and tells the story of a defiant teenage boy who's living for a while with his father because his parents are splitting up. But over the course of the movie, he begins to notice some very strange things about the house next door, and he eventually comes to believe that a witch is manipulating and killing people in this small town. This film is going to be out on VOD pretty soon. I had the chance to see a screener of it from IFC Midnight, and I thank them for sending it. I was looking forward to this movie because I heard some good things about it out of various festivals, and it looked like an old school horror movie. And in many ways, it is. There's a lot of great practical effects. The witch creature in particular is the selling point here. The makeup is great. There's some really great gore and some old school effects. And the movie also has a tone that I've asked a lot of films to have for a long time, and that is an adult version of Goosebumps. This is a very gory and violent movie. It would definitely be rated R if it was rated, but it's from the perspective of a teenager, and I've wanted more movies like that. It's strange, though, because from a studio perspective, it's hard to make a movie that has characters that are teenagers, that talk like teenagers, that do things teenagers do, but teenagers can't actually go and see your movie. That's a bit of an issue, and that's probably why a lot of these movies don't get made. But with The Wretched, I found myself also slightly annoyed with some of those choices, even though it's kind of something I've wanted to see for a while, and I appreciate when a movie that stars younger characters can also have more adult themes. It didn't always mesh that well in this film. And most of that is because the lead character in the film is a complete bore. He has a cast, so he's broken his arm at some point, you know something went wrong, and his parents are going through a divorce. That's about the extent of his characterization. There's a young girl in town that he's getting to know, but he shows virtually no interest in her even when she's trying to be nice to him. There's many scenes where she does things for him, helping him out, and he doesn't even respond. And she even says, like, "You're welcome," and he just stands there without responding. And I found myself really not liking this character, and unfortunately, he's who we experience most of this movie through. You can tell that the filmmakers cared quite a bit with so much. For a small budget film, they've given a lot of care to the look of this movie, the look of the creature, the scare scenes, the suspense. It's all set up very well, much better than a lot of indie horrors I've seen. And I think these are really talented directors. They're much better directors, I think, than they are writers, because many things about the rules of this witch seem very unclear to me having seen the movie. She has a lot of abilities, and there's a lot of backstory, and there's many things she can do, and sometimes she seems a little bit ultra powerful. She can whisper into people's ears and influence them to do whatever she wants, and apparently this control lasts for a really long time. That's not exactly clear either. She can get underneath people's skin, literally. You know, there's a lot of things that she's doing also I'm not going to ruin for you, that deeply involve twists that happen in the movie. So even though this witch was really cool and the makeup effects were awesome, she just kind of felt like a scare factory. It didn't really feel like there was much personality there, and I didn't really understand what her motivation was. There's also a scene where the lead character sits down at his computer and does a web search based off of a photo he took of a symbol he saw carved in a porch. And this leads him down a path that answers basically all of his questions. And I found it strange that there was so much information about this movie's witch out there online. Like, this witch was very known in the real world, and people know about its motivations and what it can do and the consequences. But again, without spoiling anything, there's an element to what the witch does to people in this movie that makes it hard to understand how stories could ever be told about this thing.
I've heard stories. She's been preying on ships and settlements for near 10 years. Never leaves any survivors.
No survivors? Then where do the stories come from, I wonder?
It's very much like that scene in Pirates of the Caribbean, and I know there's ways to explain it away, but again, it just felt very unclear. From a horror perspective, though, I think this movie is better than most indie horrors, and you can definitely watch it and feel some suspense based off of the scenes that are meant to scare you. And the jump scares aren't too cheap either. They're very well set up. I just couldn't get behind the characters. That was unfortunate because there's so many young people in this movie that don't feel like they fit in with the very adult movie that's also being made. There's also a group of bullies that pick on this kid constantly, and they never really come back into the movie. They felt just sort of like a device to keep our character from discovering one specific thing later on in the film, but they never really come back into the movie. They just keep picking on him and calling him names all the time, but there's never that moment with Flash Thompson where he gets pudding in his face. They just disappear. So I respect this movie and I respect the filmmakers because they're clearly extremely talented, but they gave a lot of care to the way the film looks and the way the film sounds. The score is also a lot of fun. They just didn't give that same care to their characters. The film is also heavily inspired by Disturbia or Rear Window. There's a big sequence where our character is spying on this neighbor and the girl's coming over and he's trying to convince people that something is going on. If you just go down in the cellar, you'll find it. There's a lot that I like about this movie, but there's a lot about it that disappointed me because I think more so than other indie horrors, when I see filmmakers who clearly have it, but there's this huge blind spot to what could have made this movie so much better, it frustrates me. I'm going to give The Wretched a C+. There's a lot for horror fans to like in this movie, especially aesthetically. It's a great looking movie for especially the budget. It's just that I think they should have gone through a few more drafts, or perhaps considered the notion of making the lead character not a whiny, repressed teenager. I'm not entirely sure that was the best way for us to experience this story. Thank you guys so much as always for watching, but I also want to give a big thank you to the sponsor for this video, ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN helps keep your private information safe. Now that we're spending a lot more time online, we're giving advertisers and our internet service providers even more opportunities to gather information about us. ExpressVPN provides a layer of protection to prevent others from being able to see what you're searching for and what sites you visit. And since a lot of us are binging shows and movies right now, content unblocking is something else that ExpressVPN offers that's really valuable. Some websites or apps are blocked in certain parts of the world, and with content unblocking you can access things like Netflix, but you could watch it as if you're from Japan, so you have this great new anime library to check out. Which is great for me, because titles that I really like The Place Promised in Our Early Days, or of course Dragon Ball Z, are now available. So please do visit expressvpn.com/Chris Stuckmann to find out how you can get 3 months of this service for free. That link is in the description below. That's expressvpn.com/Chris Stuckmann. Thank you so much to them for sponsoring this video, and thank you guys for watching. As always, if you like this, you can click right here and get Stuckmanized.